All right, building Unity projects with Jenkins. This is going to be part 6 of the series. In the previous part, we wrapped up the Windows build pipeline, and in part 6, we're going to be putting together the WebGL platform. So the magic of this build pipeline is we don't necessarily need to change a lot. We can copy over a lot of the functionality that we already have for the Windows build. The main takeaway that I have for this part is how we're going to set things up on the Jenkins side, how we're going to isolate both of these jobs while using the same Jenkins file. So let's go ahead and get started. The very first thing that I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and open up your Unity side build script, and this is going to be very easy. We're basically going to just be copying the build windows function. So go ahead and copy it. You want to paste it below the build windows function. Rename this function to build WebGL. Change the path to say build/WebGL. Under location path name, we're going to set this to just be path. So remove /testgame.exe. So just keep it as path like this. And then for target, you're going to change it from buildtarget.standalone to buildtarget.webgl. And then you want to save your changes, and that's all that we really needed to do. As I said, pretty simple. Now, I know a lot of you may be following along with your own projects, so you may need to customize more fields versus what we are using here. Here, we're just using a lot of Unity's defaults, but let's go take a look over at the player settings real quick over on the Unity editor side. Now, this is just one example of one field that you can modify. So if you open up your project settings and you navigate over to WebGL, if you come over to the resolution and presentation section, you can see that there's some exclusive to WebGL items here, such as specifying a WebGL template. Let's say you didn't want to use the default one that's already specified here and you wanted to control that and modify it directly from your build script. You can do so. As you can see, we have multiple options here. I went ahead and modified that player settings field here. I went ahead and created a template path, which would point to basically any custom template that you want to use for WebGL, because a lot of you probably have your own personal template that you're using. You can specify it here, and then you will set player settings.webgl.template to the template path. And this is just one example. There are many things that you can specify and customize here, so please tailor this to your needs. But for the sake of the project that I'm putting together in this course, we don't necessarily need to deviate too much from the default settings. With that said, I'm going to remove these lines and then save again. If you've been paying attention to the camera feed, you probably saw a little piece of fluff on the top of my beanie. It is gone. And then I saved. Before we push any changes to our repository, we may as well go ahead and update our Jenkins file while we're here. So just like the Unity side build script, we are going to be copying a lot of our Windows functionality here. So what you're going to do here is you're going to your stages for building and deploying Windows, and you're going to go ahead and copy those. After you've copied those Windows functions, you're basically going to paste them down below, and then you're going to change every instance of Windows with WebGL. So for the stage, we are going to rename it to build WebGL. We're going to make sure that it tracks a parameter called build WebGL. And then under execute method, we want to make sure that we're calling the new method that we created, which was buildscript.buildWebGL. And then under the deployment section, change it to deploy WebGL for the stage name. And then for the parameter that we're going to be tracking, it's going to be deploy WebGL. We're going to change the artifact name from Windows build to WebGL build. And then inside the bat block at the very bottom, go to the middle. You are going to change part of upload file. We are going to rename it to webgl.zip at the very end instead of windows.zip. And then the last thing that we want to change is the folder on Nexus that this will be deployed to within our Jenkins Unity test artifact repository. So we're going to change it from Windows builds to WebGL builds, and then you're going to select save. And that's all that we really need to do for the Jenkins file. Just a heads up, I went back to the deploy WebGL stage and I capitalized GL. So if you want to capitalize that and remain consistent, go ahead and do so. Now that you guys are this deep into the course, I'm just going to assume that you know how to do certain things. So go ahead and push up your changes to the Jenkins file and the Unity side build script to your repository. And then I'll see you over on the Jenkins side. Go ahead and get logged in over there. Now, before we go ahead and create our build pipeline for WebGL, I'm actually going to revisit this Windows Unity project real quick because there is some housekeeping that we have to do because we just technically broke this one. So I'm going to select this one. I'm going to configure it. We actually need to add some new parameters here. So go to add parameter and select hidden parameter. You are going to name this hidden parameter build WebGL, which matches what we put over on our Jenkins file. And then you're going to set its default value to false. Then add another parameter, another hidden parameter. This is why we got that plugin whenever we first installed things and got started. Now you're going to name this one deploy WebGL, and then you're going to set the default value of this to false also. After you have added these hidden parameters, go ahead and select save. So what does this necessarily do, you ask? Well, if we select build with parameters, as we can still see the build windows and deploy windows parameters here. However, we cannot see the other ones, the hidden parameters that we just specified. If we didn't have those parameters that were set there, then this job would fail. Because if we come back over to VS Code, as you can see, we have these specified here. And if this build WebGL parameter doesn't exist at all, then it's going to throw an error. So this is why we have to have a hidden parameter set. So anyone that runs this build pipeline here, they're able to still build the Windows project and deploy it as they normally would. So this is very useful. We can use the same Jenkins file for multiple platforms. So as has been tradition so far with this video, we are going to go ahead and copy this name here of the Windows Unity project job. We are going to select new item. We are going to name this WebGL Unity project. And then down from copy from, we are going to type in Windows Unity project or paste that previous one in here. And this is going to copy everything over from the other build pipeline. Select OK. Over on this end, we do need to update a few things. So we need to actually swap these, the hidden parameters and the Boolean parameters. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rename the very first Boolean parameter to build WebGL instead of build Windows. The second one I am going to change to deploy WebGL instead of deploy Windows. And the first hidden parameter is going to be build Windows. And the second hidden parameter I'm going to change to deploy Windows instead of deploy WebGL. After you've swapped around the parameters, you're going to go ahead and save. And let's go ahead and test things out. Let's go ahead and build with parameters. Now we see build WebGL and deploy WebGL here. I'm going to go ahead and check deploy WebGL too, because I want to go ahead and deploy to Nexus, and then select build. If you didn't set up the Nexus artifact repository, just don't worry about checking that last box. Okay, after waiting for about 7.5 minutes, it seems like everything's successful. We have built the WebGL project and it says that it deployed successfully, which is nice. One thing about WebGL builds, if you're building them for the first time, it's going to take a little bit. So if I was to run this again, it wouldn't take anywhere near 7.5 minutes for it to build. That also leads me to something important. If you are working on a project that is multi-platform and you're constantly swapping between those platforms, you may want to define separate workspaces for each one so it doesn't trigger a re-import every time the build platform changes. I went ahead and built it again for science. It took 1:40. Nice. The next thing that I want to do now that that is completed, I want to check out my Nexus repository. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in. After I signed in, I select browse. I select Jenkins_Unity_test. And now we can see that we have two separate folders here, one for WebGL and then one for Windows. If I expand Windows, it shows the time and everything. If I show the WebGL, it shows WebGL, build, and then time and date. So nice. Everything's working exactly how we want it to. And here are the two timestamp builds that I created, the second one for science. So up until this point, a lot of the videos have been pretty long, so it's nice to have a little bit of a break with this one. It seems like everything went by just so fast for WebGL. And that's because a lot of the work was just already done. Again, the main takeaway for this is setting up the Jenkins side. So I hope that you guys paid attention very well to how I utilize the hidden parameters. And I managed to create multiple build pipelines based off of the same Jenkins file, which is nice. With that said, our WebGL project is done. So that means that we have completed the Windows and WebGL portion of this course. So there's just two platforms that remain. We just need to take care of Android and we need to take care of iOS. So the next video, we will be tackling Android. Thank you for following along with me. I can see the finish line in sight. It's creeping up on us. So I'll see you in the next video for part 7. Bye-bye.